Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Enforcing Heat Safety Rights at UPS. If you haven't yet, please type your name and your local in the chat, and we are going to get started. My name is Shane Carrigan. I'm a package car driver and steward in Providence, Rhode Island, Local 251, and I'm also a proud member of the TDU Steering Committee. Today's call is sponsored by UPS Teamsters United, which is a project of Teamsters for a Democratic Union. We are a network of Teamsters who inform and involve members to build a strong union. UPS doesn't care about us. They care about packages and profits. Management as MO is speed up and production harassment, whether you work on the truck or you're on the belt system. It's dangerous year round, but during the extreme heat of summer, it can mean life or death. We won stronger heat safety rights in our contract. They only work if we enforce them. The best way we can do that is together. TDU shares best practices with each other about how to inform members and how to enforce the language. Our UPS Teamsters United Network brings UPSs together to do just that. If you're not a member, I urge you to join TDU. The IBT has put together a great toolkit of heat safety materials. We'll talk about how to use those too. After the call, we will email those materials to everyone and text you a take action form to fill out so you can help and network with other UPS Teamsters. Today, we're going to go over our heat safety rights. Most importantly, we'll share proven strategies for enforcing them by informing and involving members. Use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. Our panelists will be answering questions in the Q&A and live following this presentation. To get us started today, I'd like to introduce Richard Blake, a driver in Jacksonville, Florida, Local 512, to review heat safety language.
Hey, thanks, Shane. I appreciate that intro. Yeah, my name is Richard Blake. I'm a driver, been driver for about 5, 6 years now, and I was inside the building for about 8. And so I know about heat safety both in the building and on the road. So yeah, we're going to go over some of our heat safety rights, especially a lot of the new language in the most recent contract. And then later on, people will talk about enforcement. So first, to start off, for inside workers, I worked inside the building for many years, and no matter what shift it is in the summer, it gets hot. So we're talking a lot of Article 18. So all of these are under Article 18, Section 27. I highly recommend anyone on the call give that section, give the whole article a read, but give that section another read as well. A lot of good info in there. First of all, drinking water and ice machines for all workers on a shift. I think we've all been there where you go and you check, you try to get some ice for your cup, for a cooler, what have you. Ice machine's broken. You complain about it. They say, what are you going to do? The contract's really specific. It says they have to have working ice machines that are clean and function and provide ice, or they need to have ice delivered in bags. A lot of us probably remember the days where we mostly were getting ice in bags. The same goes for water. They have to have clean, potable water for everybody. And that goes for people inside the building, any shift, doesn't matter, any time. You have to have access to that. So if that is a problem, make sure to raise it with your steward, file a grievance, and pursue it. In addition, you have I think that was 18,000 additional building fans. Now, we don't expect anybody, who's on the day sort unloading the trailer to have an active count on where we are between 1 and 18,000. But what you do know when you're working your job is whether a fan is hitting your work area, right? Is there a one fan everyone's fighting over, or are you getting pretty good access to a fan? It's not like it's air conditioning or anything. That's only for management. But we are supposed to have those fans. So if you're in a work area that doesn't have fan coverage, you're all day, you get nothing hitting you, or it's here and there, barely anything. That's another thing to pursue, because the contract specifically lays out that they have to install a lot of them. And I think we've seen a lot of exciting campaigns where people inside the building are able to get fans in their work area. And then last but not least, for inside the building people, are cool zones. So this is, people think this is just for package car drivers. It's not. It's for everybody. When you're inside the building, you're unloading a trailer, you're starting to feel any of the symptoms of heat illness, right? All the trainings that management puts us through, where they go through all the symptoms, you feel any of those, not just you're about to fall out or about need to call 911. I mean, any of them. You can inform management that you need access to a cool zone, and they're supposed to have those identified already. They can't say, I don't know. You can't find a cool zone. I don't know where it's air conditioned. And when in doubt, it's probably a management room where you can find some AC. They're supposed to know where that is and direct you to it so that you can cool down and be safe and not have a situation where you are having to call 911 and go to the hospital. Very important thing with cool zones is that you are not asking to go to a cool zone. You are informing. The moment you start negotiating it, they're going to say, well, maybe, we can get this trailer done first. If you know your body better than anyone else, your soup doesn't know it, unless UPS is having a doctor on standby, they don't know it neither. You know your body, you know if you're suffering from heat illness symptoms. If you need access to a cool zone, inform management. That's part of their own rules. They already know this. And they should know where a cool zone is. So always be sure to enforce that right. And look out for your coworkers too. Sometimes it does take a little bit of bravery to tell your manager, same thing with even going to the bathroom or getting water or getting ice. People are a little afraid to do it. Make sure your coworkers know about it too. Because people always have access to those. The last thing anybody wants is to fall out in a trailer and nobody discovers them for 5, 10, 20 minutes. Like that's how people die. So make sure your coworkers know about it. So getting into drivers, insulated water jugs. All of us who were in package when the new contract got passed, we got a bunch of new water jugs. I wasn't sure about it at first. I actually like mine. I use mine every day. It's about a gallon. It tends to keep it pretty cool as long as there's, you can get access to ice. Um, this also goes for, in the when you read Article 18, Section 27, it goes for every new package car driver on a one-time basis. You lose yours, I don't know if you can get another one. But all new drivers who are coming up, make sure they have it too, right? They're coming up, they don't know what they need for a hard, it's their first summer working in your center. Make sure they know that they have access to that. Make sure they know all the rules, but especially that they have access to that water jug. Because management knows they're supposed to get it for them. It's our responsibility as experienced drivers to let the newer ones know that they have access to that. So they don't have to go out and buy one or something, or they leave it at home. Like they have access to that. Same thing for ice and water. It's not just for inside the building people. A lot of us bring coolers to work every day. In fact, we really need to because the back of the truck's 120 degrees. You also have access to ice. It's not just for inside the building people. And if the ice machines are broken, they need to serve bags up, right? Management knows this, at least the ones who read the contract, which how many of those there are, I don't know. But they know they're supposed to do that. It's up to us to enforce it and make sure they're actually doing it. Otherwise, they'll just put their hands up in the air and say, well, ice machine's broken. What do you want me to do? Well, I want you to obey the contract and get ice delivered then, because it's not up to drivers when they're doing their errors to go by a gas station and get ice. That's their responsibility to provide ice and they know it. So make sure you're enforcing that. Section 14 of Article 18, we got 2 fans on every package car. We are well past the deadline for management having to put 2 fans in every package car. At this point, that's just complete negligence if they haven't done it. I tend to find that most of the trucks do. I haven't seen any problems, but if in your center, you got somebody who gets in the truck and they're trying to turn on their fans, they're getting nothing, that's right there. Inform management immediately because that's something they need to have fixed years ago at this point. So let's talk about cool zones. It's a little bit different than inside the building. Inside the building, you should have closer access to it. But every single person in package who is, whether you're doing a residential route with 200 stops in subdivisions, or you're doing a business route where you're walking in out of businesses all day, everyone has the equal right to access to a cool zone. So something in both in the contract and in mostly in management zone training. So this is supposed to be in addition to your regular meal and 10-minute breaks. We're going to talk about exactly how to do it, but this is something you do the moment you feel any of the symptoms of heat illness. Once again, it's the same as inside the building people, not when you're about to fall out, not when you need to call 911. You need to call 911, you do that immediately. But this is when you're starting to feel it because you don't want to get to the point where you're falling out in the back of your truck. And we'll talk about what a cool zone is, but basically, what you want to do is you want to send not a phone call. I mean, you want to call as well, that's fine, but really you need to send a message on your dyad, and really you should take a picture of that message as well. And what you're doing is basically the same thing as an inside worker. You're saying, hey, experiencing symptoms of heat illness. I need access to a cool zone. If you're feeling really bad, you can even tell them you need to call 911. They're supposed to have identified cool zones for us. That's part of their training. That's in the contract. And then you need to identify a cool zone. And if management wants to direct you to a certain one, whatever. But you have access to it, even no matter if you're in a subdivision or if you're like me, you're walking in and out of business all day. It's easy for me to do. I can just stop at one of my businesses, let them know I need to take a cool zone break. And then if they send me something back, we'll see. But even if you're in the back, you're deep in a residential neighborhood, you have the exact same rights as anyone else does to a cool zone. And then when you're there, you're gonna rest and rehydrate, do whatever you need to do to get yourself back. It's all about good faith. You once again, you know your body better than anyone else. And then you want to let management know if when you're going back to delivering, right? You don't want to keep it vague. You don't want to stay there for a while, do this or that. You are there to recover. And if you can't recover and you need to go to the hospital, I would, that's the next step. But at first things first, get into that cool zone and cool down and make sure you're doing everything by message in the dyad and that you're taking pictures of it. We're going to say work is instructed, and mostly what that means is management is probably not going to be arguing about, whether to keep you out of a cool zone, but even if they are, you put it back on them. Well, do you want me to call 911? Like they're going to have options here, and they're going to want to put it on you. You can put it back on them. Um, so usually the work is instructed piece is usually about whether they want you to clock out or not. Obviously, we're not here to get terminated, for getting into a cool zone. Do what they say. You grieve it later. You're going to talk to your steward. I would recommend if you have to use a cool zone, I'd recommend you tell your steward anyway. Just to be honest, that's me. That's keep yourself safe. But if they've instructed you to clock out, use your regular break period, then that's when you talk to your steward because you need to get paid for that. That's not what break periods are for. Break periods are a completely different thing. This is about access to a cool zone. So if they instruct you to clock out, talk with your steward, file a grievance later. For now, you're going to obey it. But the most important thing is that you're not going to be, you have access to a cool zone. You're going to stay safe. So 9-5 routes. 9-5 violations. They're bad all year. They're especially bad in the summer because there's so many vacations. It's so much hotter. Management's own methods have talked about pacing yourself to avoid heat illness, right? And they specifically define it as, keeping yourself safe and even slowing down if need be. You're doing your job, but when it's hotter out, there's no question the way the job is going to get carried out is going to be different. You're going to be stopping and drinking water more. You're going to be doing what you need to do to keep yourself safe. And if you have 5 or more 9-5 violations in a calendar year, that's good. You can be put what's on the elevated list, and you have to have a meeting with the management within 45 days. And if they still haven't adjusted the route and you're still going over 9-5, you're then eligible for quadruple time pay. And in my book, it's a really, really important thing to enforce. And I really, this is about your safety too. It's not just about do you want to be under 9-5? This is about safety. Working DOT hours, DOT max hours when it's 100 degrees out, right? When it's 120 degrees in the back of your truck, delivering over 200 stops. There's no question about that. Is that more or less likely to put you in the hospital? It's more likely. There's no question. That's one of the reasons the 9-5 list is there. So make sure you're enforcing your rights. Talk to your coworkers, make sure they're enforcing their rights, talk to them about the elevated list. And a question that may come up, in addition to all of this, when we're talking about 9-5 violations and cool zones, AC in the trucks. Go back to Article 18 and read it. They're supposed to replace 28,000 vehicles. I don't know about any of you all in package car centers. I have not seen one. And I think this is going to be something that we're going to have to push them more on. People need to know that they are contractually required to do it. But in the meantime, things like enforcing 9-5, making sure people know about cool zones, enforcing our rights when it comes to like ice and water and whatnot, that's bread and butter stuff you can do right now, right this moment, so. I believe that's everything. So thank you very much. I'm gonna turn it back to Shane.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. It's one thing to have our rights in writing in the contract, right? It's another thing to be able to enforce them when your manager is trying to bully and intimidate members. So the IBT has put together a heat safety toolkit of materials. It includes heat safety fact sheets for inside workers and drivers. It also includes leaflets on 9-5 rights and on your right to take a break in a cool zone. The IBT has also produced trifold cards with the cool zone information that we can keep in our wallets. So fill out the take action form to let us know if you want to order wallet cards. If you join TDU today, we'll send you a stack with your free t-shirt. We'll also send you a copy of all of these leaflets at the end of this webinar. The key to enforcing our rights is to get members acting as a group. When we act as individuals, it's easier for management to target people and harass them. No one wants that target on their back. More members will enforce their rights, whether it's 9-5 or a heat safety or filing grievances, when they see other people do it. Group action is the antidote to group fear. Now, that's easier said than done, I know, but it doesn't happen overnight, and everybody won't do it. But if we can get more members informed about their rights, and if we can get some of those members enforcing their rights together, then we're moving in the right direction. So now we're going to hear from some stewards and members who have had success and are making plans to take action using these tools. I'm going to turn it over to Jake Streichkast, a TDU organizer who works with Teamster members across the South.
Thanks, Shane. And before we get into the next section, I just want to remind everyone, I see some people with their hands up for questions. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. You can type your questions into that Q&A function. We're answering them live during the webinar in writing, and we're going to do Q&A at the end where we'll answer them on the webinar as well. So yeah, we're gonna hear from some stewards and activists from across the country who have, can share some best practices about how they've been enforcing their heat safety rights and involving their coworkers. So first up, I'm going to call Isaac Louders. He's a TDU steering committee member and a steward from Milwaukee, Local 344. And there he is. So Isaac, why don't you get us started and talk a little bit, about how, you have been able to involve your coworkers and, get them enforcing their cool zone rights.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Well, the first thing that I worked on and focused on is just getting the education and information out there. So this webinar is a great opportunity for that. What we did last year is we did parking lot meetings. There was a coordinated effort through TDU to have heat and safety parking lot meetings to get the word out there. Shane mentioned it, some of the tools. I mean, I handed out some flyers with education when it comes to heat safety, the little pamphlets. I think these are a great tool. They're small, they can fit in your wallet, they can fit in your work bag. But using that parking lot meeting to get the word out there, that got it in everyone's minds. And then just always having these pamphlets, I just kept them on me all summer. And we have a table that us stewards usually hang out at every single morning. I'd leave them out there. Whenever the members want to walk by, they can grab them, they can pick them up. It just keeps heat and safety and keeps the education when it comes to cool down breaks and all the other heat safety education and protection that we have out there on everyone's mind. And from there, members started having conversations about it. A lot of my members, a lot of my coworkers, they communicate a lot throughout the day on, the Bluetooth earpieces, a lot of group calls. So when one member starts experiencing symptoms, the other members would be like, hey, well, didn't we have a parking lot meeting about this? Or I think we have some information. Let me go dig in my work bag about that. And from there, the members start executing on that. And Richard did a good job kind of explaining the steps when it comes to the cool down breaks, but I'll kind of recap it real quick. Your first step is experiencing the symptoms. So when you have those, you notice you have the symptoms, whether it's fatigue, dizziness, lightheaded, all that stuff. Then you move on to the next step. Communicate with the company, notify them. I always recommend communicate through the diet board. You want receipts, you want it noted. And you'll notice the way the company is going to react is going to be a little bit different off the dyad as opposed to a phone call. And then, your third step is to execute on it. Take that break, use that cool zone, whether it's a business, gas station, or just a shaded area. Use that area and communicate with the company where you're going to be taking that break, when you are. And then if you're good, symptoms go away, you're feeling a little bit better, let the company know, all right, I'm good to go. Or if they're not changing or getting worse, then seek medical help. And once again, try to communicate with the company. That's the biggest thing, is just getting the education out there, though. I mean, that's really helped out. It's not something that gets used all the time, but it has been used by myself and by my coworkers, and it's effective as long as we follow those steps.
Awesome. Thank you, Shane. And yeah, communicating with each other is really important as well. Next up, I am going to bring up Seth Pasick. He's another TDU steering committee member. and a steward from Dallas, local 767. So Seth, you have in your center, lots of drivers who have gone through elevated meetings and gotten their routes adjusted and kind of don't get their 9-5 rights violated as much as others do. But first, sort of take a step back. Tell us about how you as a steward were able to get, so many people filing 9-5s to begin with.
Well, there was a point a few years ago when we had kind of like sort of streamlined the process of having people file 9-5 grievances. I had made a form fillable PDF of our grievances and made templates for all of the drivers that filed. And then I would print out like basically the already filled out like grievance and just change the dates, that were relevant so that people just all they had to do was sign a grievance, and you'd be amazed at like how much of a difference that makes. If people, when they just have to sign a grievance and they don't have to do anything else, are a lot more likely to file. And I was keeping track of their hours by the recaps, like every day, and I would chart their hours and then see who was over 9-5, who wasn't, and have a grievance ready to go and sign for them. And we had something like a 99% like filing rate. There was usually every week we had everybody that was eligible to file would file except for there was one person that didn't want to file. There was 1 week he did, so we had 100% filing rate on 1 week. But generally speaking, it was everybody except that one person. That year, as a result, we had like 30 compliance meetings that we had to have out of a driver base of like I think 70-ish drivers. And then they violated 20 something of our compliance meetings. And we took those to panel, and the company got their ass handed to them over that. And as a result, we haven't had nearly the issues that we had had in the past, ever since really.
Great. And talk a little bit more about sort of the role that, parking lot meetings played in this process as well.
Yeah, I mean, we would have regular parking lot meetings to try and keep people informed about what they could do, when it related to their like what their rights were, what various like tips and whatever were to get people to encourage people to file 9-5. We've had in our local we've had a lot of heat injuries and several deaths. And we had one guy out of my building that year that had like fallen out. He had passed out on his way home on the highway, and he got like put into a coma, and he had a heat stroke, and he still can't like really properly walk and talk. And so that was kind of a big like thing for us. And I think it kind of like woke a lot of people up about the seriousness of all of this. And we actually had a parking lot meeting not long after that that the news attended actually, and my principal officer spoke at. But um, yeah, I mean it was integral, I think, to getting people to like really know what they could and couldn't do, and what the best practices are when it comes to the heat.
Great. Thanks, Seth. And yeah, I think both Seth and Isaac have highlighted parking lot meetings. When you get your email afterwards with your toolkit, included in that will be sort of a guide of how to have a parking lot meeting around heat safety, as well as a feedback form where an organizer can call you to sort of help you get a parking lot meeting going if it's your first time. So next up, I'm going to call Siobhan Moore from Local 638 in Minnesota. Um, So, Siobhan, you guys were having, an issue with lack of fans in your building. So, talk a little bit about how you guys addressed this.
So, I'm one of the stewards on the preload in the Broadway hub over in Minneapolis and local 638. We had most other shifts by the point of just after the last contract was ratified. They did get some fans. Preload for years has just not had fans at all. Not on box lines, not on slides, not on sorts. So, there was an outstanding grievance about that from the year prior, but going into last summer, the temperature really got just awful. You know, you had people melting off the box lines, trying to load trucks and just having to boil over. So we started to do also kind of parking lot meetings, flyer handout, Article 18, contract education rights. I hijacked a couple PCMs. Just to be like, hey, you know, if you're overheating, tell your manager you need to go somewhere to not overheat. I mean, what are they going to do? Tell me I can't tell people to do that? um, but so we continued to flyer at the gates and to have those kind of parking lot meetings. We brought out a lemonade cooler, got people to stop by a lot more, have conversations about what we need to do to get fans. Then we started to move more towards, you know, taking more action on it because the grievance was still deadlocked. Base and labor management were just refusing. They said, no, we don't want to. Spoiler, they own the fans. They just didn't want to install them. But so then we held a larger kind of like combination rally picnic kind of thing at a park just up the road from the hub. We call it a Teamster tailgate because if you mention football in anywhere in Minnesota, that you will get some Teamsters there. Um, but so we held that. We had pretty solid turnout to that. And I guess labor management really wasn't expecting us to have any kind of large turnout action because the next week they started installing fans. Uh, Somewhere of like upwards of a couple million in electricians costs we got out of them to install all of those fans. So yeah, it really at the end of the day boiled down to like, you know, doing the same things for like getting the education out there, getting people aware of their contract and aware of their rights, and then starting to move on more militant action to show that, you know, like, well, if you're not going to take us at the grievance level, we're just going to show that we need this now. So, yeah.
That's great. That's a great reminder that yes, you can file a grievance, but you can also petition and do other things outside the process to give management another kick. Um, so next up, I'm gonna call back Shane Kerrigan from Local 251. And Shane, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how, you know, you guys use group chats to kind of educate and involve members around heat safety rights?
Sure. Thank you, Jake. So, all of the stewards in our building, we're all in a group chat together with the business agent, and we kind of use that to share plans, share issues, get ahead of center-wide stuff and building-wide problems because we know that our management already talks to each other throughout the building. And so like the communication between the stewards is integral to figure out like where management is trying to get away with one thing so that they don't get away with it in the rest of the building. We also have a bunch of group chats that any of our members can join. Stewards are encouraged to invite and bring other members to those group chats. Um, Members keep in touch with each other throughout the day in these group chats, and we're always on calls together so that, you know, on the hotter days when guys do need to take a break, when people do need to take a break, we're able to kind of work off of each other. And you know, that empowers more people to do stuff like that because if they see it successfully happening in other places, then they're going to do the same thing. And so, you know, we also use these chats for like if, you know, if management tries to harass, you know, a couple of people, maybe like, you know, the people that they think won't fight back on them, you know, we can share these pictures throughout the group chats and stuff and, you know, use that to kind of like drum up support throughout the entire building where, you know, this manager is harassing this guy. So, you know, you don't treat that guy well, in other words. And, you know, we let these drivers know that it's okay to take these breaks. And, you know, we kind of drum that into their heads that if you're hot, stop. And it's been very effective. But also at the same time, you also want to be very careful and make sure that you're not, it can't be perceived that you're directing the workforce. Because if you're in a group chat and you're putting this stuff down, you know, there's a chance that management's going to get a hold of everything that you're saying. So just keep that in mind before you know, go and try to direct people to stop. That can sometimes turn out to be a problem, but you know, hopefully if you know how to do it right and you're using those tools correctly, everybody's going to be on the same page. Management won't even find out that you're in a group chat together. But when we come together and we show each other in the company that we can't be intimidated, that's how we stay together with solidarity. So thank you, Jake.
Yeah, I think using group chats is really important for people not to know that they're not alone out there in the heat, that everyone is suffering through the same heat. And, when people see that other people are taking their breaks and enforcing their rights, it encourages more people to do that. So thanks for explaining that, Shane.
Exactly.
Um, Next up, I'm going to call up John Gilroy from Local 385. He's a steward in Local 385 out of Gainesville. John, 385 is a pretty big, spread out local. Talk a little bit about how you and sort of other stewards are sort of planning to educate and involve members across Central Florida in this.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the heat index, we probably beat most places in the country as far as days over 100 and days over 105. It's really hot. It's very humid here. We don't get much help from our local in educating the members about their rights. And so we do a lot of same thing. Um,
Yeah, and talk a
WhatsApp
little bit about.
groups,
Oh, go ahead.
WhatsApp groups, and chat groups and those kind of things, letting people know their rights and letting people know. We do a lot in the PCMs. The safety committee says the heat index, what that's going to be today, and communicate that, and then communicate more to people about where the cool zones are and where they can go on their routes to get cool.
Talk a little bit about plans you guys have coming up over the next few weeks in Orlando.
Next weekend we're planning a meeting in Orlando, where we have about 40 or 50 people slated to come to a workshop to educate the members, and share strategies and make a plan to coordinate across all. We go from all the way to Lake City down to Melbourne. So we're a pretty large, I think there's 10 buildings with about 15 centers, I believe, in those buildings, but we're a pretty large area. And we're planning to, at this meeting, get people together to coordinate and come up with some strategies to communicate those.
Great, thanks, John. And for those who don't know Florida geography, Lake City to Melbourne's about 3.5 hour drive. That's if there's no traffic. So it's a large geography to cover. And yeah, I'll be going down and meeting with members and doing a workshop, and we're excited for members to coordinate and have plans coming out of that. So now I'm going to pass it back to Shane to sort of close us out here, and then we'll go into Q&A.
Thank you, Jake. So fill out the take action form to let us know if you guys want to order wallet cards again. If you join TDU today, we'll send you a stack with your free t-shirt. And we'll also email you a copy of all these leaflets at the end of this webinar. So I joined TDU because I was interested in becoming a more effective steward and a more effective union member. I already had, the attitude that management was harassing us, and what were we going to do about it? And TDU is the kind of organization that will take you and train you to be a more effective union member. And if you're a steward, a more effective steward, that way your ability to fight back when management decides that it's time to harass and intimidate people is a million times more effective. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely sign up for TDU. We're going to open this up for the Q&A in 1 second. So if you guys have a question, write it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. A text is going to be going out to you now. Fill out the form, order some wallet cards. An organizer will help you make some plans to take action in your area. And after this call, we're going to email all these materials to you, and they will also be posted on the TDU website and the UPS Teamsters United website. So back to you, Jake. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. And just to clarify, anyone who wants a heat safety wallet card, these are produced by the IBT. We have tons of them in our office that we'll mail to you for free, whether you join TDU or not. We will mail you heat safety wallet cards if you want. You just fill out the feedback form that you're going to get sent to you momentarily and request them, and we will mail you those cards. So now let's get into the Q&A. And the first question is from Keith, who asks, so his labor manager has claimed that cooldown break is not paid. The manager is saying that the contract does not say anywhere that's a paid break. Um, so someone, he wants to know, has there been any precedent set that these cooldown breaks should be paid as opposed to unpaid? And that's kind of open for anyone who's spoken here today to say. I don't know if Seth or Richard, one of you want to answer that question.
I can say something about that.
Yeah.
I can only kind of speak on my own local, but out of our local, the practice has been as long as you've already used up your lunch and breaks, then you can take that cool down break and you are on the clock for that. You don't have to code out for that. Yeah, I can't speak for every local, but that's our practice. That's what we've done.
And Richard, maybe you can talk about like the language in the contract around using UPS's own guidelines and sort of what you see in the dyad training and how that's enforceable.
Yeah, you would think that your manager being so intense about it being unpaid would be able to cite something in their trainings, and then he's almost certainly not going to be able to, because at least in any of the trainings I've seen, I've never seen anything that says, underlined and bolded, this is not paid. We have really specific language for our breaks. Everyone's supplements are different and their language is going to be slightly different. The nature of our breaks are that we choose to use them. This is a separate thing in trainings that they reference as a cool zone. Now, once again, obey management. But I'm not familiar with management usually pushing this super hard, but if they do, and like in your case, they are, obey it, put it in, right? But I 100% grieve that afterwards. And yeah, I'd be interested to see if Seth has any grievances he's done from that. Because like I said, most of the time management's not really nitpicky about that in most areas, but if they are, I would just grieve it, because you do have to obey it. We're not in the business of getting ourselves terminated for taking going to a cool zone. But you would think that their own trainings would specifically say that, and that he'd be able to reference that. But I've never seen anything that says that they're unpaid in their trainings.
Thanks, Richard. I think David Levine from TDU wants to jump in here as well.
Yeah, hi. This has been a great webinar. I just wanted to say quickly on this that the position of the IBT on this is 100% clear. They've printed leaflets, they printed these wallet cards that say exactly what we've been saying here, that it's a violation and you should grieve it. What I would recommend people do is when you file that grievance, share it with TDU. And we can also help you share it with the IBT and the package division. They need to kind of see that the violations are happening, so that we're putting them together and taking the best case forward to get that kind of precedent setting decision. I think that there's been a little bit too much of in places where you have a strong assertive local, it's getting enforced. And in other places, sometimes you just have a bully manager who's like pushing folks around. And so we want to keep strengthening this right and winning these grievances so that members feel more confident. Because them being confident to use those breaks is going to mean protecting them and people being safer. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thanks, David. So we had a bunch of questions about 9.5 rights and elevated meetings. And I think a bunch of them are sort of asking to clarify more. So I'm wondering if someone here could clarify, if you have 5 9.5 grievances, but they're deadlocked and they haven't been settled and paid out yet, are you able to get your elevated meeting, or do you have to wait for your fifth grievance to be paid out before requesting an elevated meeting?
Well, I'd say the language says that they have to be paid, right? Like, I always advise people on their fifth grievance to write in the settlement requested that they want a compliance hearing, and also to file a separate grievance for a compliance hearing to sort of try and kickstart like the process of like the 45 days and all that. But no, they actually have to be, by the language, they have to be settled before you can force a meeting.
That's right. Have some related questions around water and ice. This is kind of for anyone on the panel, I think, as well. Sort of, how do you deal with differences between what you think is adequate amounts of water and ice and what management thinks is adequate amounts of water and ice? You know, the example somebody gave was, well, they only have one water fountain. Do they have to provide bottled water? Or, you know, if they're trying to limit the amount of ice you're taking, as they say they're short on ice, you know, how would you guys as stewards handle that?
I'll jump in on this one. I mean, if management starts complaining about how long members are taking to fill up their water bottles because they're all huddled around the same, water fountain, then I would say that's a solid argument right there to say that we need more. We need bottled water provided, or more fountains or something. I think that's a pretty effective way. But if it doesn't seem to be an issue, just having the one and management's fine with you guys just standing in line waiting, I guess that might be enough. But have that conversation with you and your coworkers and see what management feels about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think at the end of the day, like, especially if we're talking like bags of ice or even just an ice machine, if they're like, oh, well, you're taking too much and this and that, I'm like, well, then you better get some more. Like, if an employee, a worker decides that like they need a certain amount of ice to survive the heat of the day, there's nothing in the contract that puts the onus on them of like, this is your allotted ice amount or this or that or that. It's on management to make as much available as possible. So that would be a conversation I would definitely have with a manager at the same time as a steward of being like, well, if you're complaining about employees taking too much water, taking too long with the water fountain, taking too much ice, the ice machine, not having enough ice, then that's a problem that you need to fix because the contract says that this is the mandate that you have to fit this need. If that's the need, then you better adjust the amount you're bringing in. So that's how I would go about it. I don't think management really has any right to be like, here's the limit. He's like, okay, what if the ice melts? What are you gonna not let me get more? Yeah, so that's what I would say. It's on management. And you should push management on that. Like they need to get more of that.
Great. And Siobhan, I'm actually going to keep you up here for this next question. We're going to do one or two more questions, but somebody asked about inside worker cool breaks. They asked, do they have the right to take cool down breaks? The answer is yes, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, how it works for inside workers.
Yeah, for sure. So, for inside workers, of course, we don't have dyads, so we can't really keep the written documentation of it as much, it can suck a little bit if you do have the like supervisors are like, okay, then clock out. But generally how it works, if you are feeling at any level overheated, need to stop, need to cool down, you tell your supervisor, and then you go and find usually cool zones are break rooms, bathrooms, a place with just cooler. If it's AC, low running AC, because you also don't want to shoot your body into shock. Especially if you are like experiencing really severe like heat exhaustion. But in general, again, it's you are just notifying your supervisor. You're not haggling over, can I take a cool down break? It's like, okay, you are, if you got to go so far as saying I want to exercise my Article 18 rights to a cool down break, say that. But you have the ultimate right to go and take that time. It should be paid. If they insist that you clock out for it, follow, grieve later. Because yeah, it is the holding of the international, not just of any particular local. That those are paid, and like keep track of like if a supervisor tells you that, which supervisor, who heard them around you, all of that, so that we can process that in a grievance. But in general, yeah, that's kind of the way it works if for inside people.
Great. We're gonna do like a last question or two that are related to driver cool zone breaks. So someone asked, if you take time to rehydrate at a delivery stop and that time is only used for rehydrating, can you be written up for stealing time?
I mean, this is the generic answer is management can write you up for literally anything. The question is, will that discipline hold? And no, that would be insane. Can you imagine? A lot of supplemental state how many breaks you can use throughout the day. Can you imagine you had to do one every time you took a sip of water or had a Gatorade? All the things that in their own trainings they tell you to do, right? They will PCM. What do they harp on? You guys need to drink 2 bottles of water an hour. You got to drink this many Gatorades. It's all about you have to do this. And then it would be pretty insane for them to try and discipline you for doing the thing that they told you to do. So they could certainly try it, but no, I mean, that would never stick in a million years. And if they do, I think like Levine said earlier, if they're trying to violate people's basic rights when it comes to heat exhaustion, send those grievances in. I think people should see some examples of management overreaching.
Got it. And then a simple one on cooldowns. Can you take multiple cool zone breaks in a day or just one?
I'll hit this again. Yeah, once again, their trainings, the things that, if at the very end of Article 18, employees shall be allowed to follow best practices as outlined in the employer's heat stress training. It says nothing about a maximum number. The most important thing when it comes to cool zone breaks, these are not, I don't want to sound lectury, but like these are not like just like an additional break or something because you want to have another break. It's because you feel the symptoms of heat illness, right? You feel any of them, not just the last one, but including like the first couple ones that happen when you start to have it. And that could happen several times in a day, especially if people are working long days. But even if you're not, the whole point is to keep yourself safe. The last thing in the world is, to have to tell your family to come meet you in the hospital because you fell out, because you felt like maybe you shouldn't take more than one. You know your body, do however much you need to do. It's the same goes for the time that you're there, and the same goes for whether you feel you need to go to the hospital and call 911 and get taken off the truck. So it's all about keeping yourself safe.
Okay. And we have a final question. I'm going to pose it to Shane. And this question came from Ralph from local 657 in San Antonio, who asked, how can I get pamphlets, a shirt, and other things to pass the message to my coworkers?
All you have to do is ask, and we will email you, we will text you, we will get you that stuff.
Yep. And everyone should by now have gotten a link sent to them with a feedback form. You can fill out that form. It'll have a question asking if you want materials sent to you. Give us your address, we'll send it to you. Um, you'll have links where you can purchase t-shirts. You'll get an email sent to you with the whole IBT toolkit, so you can print out any flyers that you'd like to print out. So again, encourage everyone here to click the link, fill out the form, take action, get in contact with us. And yeah, so thank you all for joining today's webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you and getting material in your hands. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you, everybody.